Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Anthony and Red's Top 10. I am your host, Anthony Gamer, and I am the co host there, Red the Fox. And in today's episode, we're going to be discussing the top 10 M Network games for the Atari 2600. Okay, now, for those of you that aren't in the know, M Network was the game subsidiary company, I guess you could say. You just did a lot of double talk there. Yeah, I know. I was trying to find my words there correctly. I don't work with a script. But anyway, M Network was a part of Mattel that made video games for game systems outside of the Intellivision, which was their home console. Now, if that may sound like a conflict of interest to you, it really wasn't, as Atari had their own branch called Atari Soft, in which they would make Atari games that they kind of had the licensing to for other game consoles as well. If any of you know exactly why they did this, we'd like to know. Let us know in the comment section below, because it's interesting where game companies like that would make release games of theirs for other game systems. But regardless, so when it came to some of the Intellivision games, in a way, it would be quite a challenge to release some of them for the Atari 2600, because of the fact that there were so many big differences between the Intellivision and the Atari 2600. That's correct. One of the biggest differences, of course, is the controller. As you can see from this picture right here, the Atari 2600 controller, or the standard controller, had one button. Yeah, and on the other flip side of the coin there, if you look at the Intellivision, there's a whole lot of buttons going on there. Now, I know you hate to use the expression, and I do too, but in a lot of ways, M Network was challenged to, for lack of a better term, dumb down some of their Intellivision games for the Atari 2600. I mean, after all, you had to make a game that ordinarily used several buttons and make it work for just one. Yep, so they really had a challenge ahead of them when they did it. And we'll look and see how they pulled it off with our top 10 favorite games. So before we get started, our usual disclaimer that we mean absolutely no disrespect by this list. These are simply our opinions, and we are not saying that we're better or smarter than you, and if your opinions are different, you're right. Also, don't forget that we judge our games by several different factors, such as the fun factor. Is the game fun? Graphics and sound, of course, are important, as well as replayability. So, without further ado, let's get into the games. Are you ready, Red? Oh yeah, Red is ready. So, let's get started on the games. And our first game for today there at the number 10 spot is Super Challenge Baseball. Now, this was programmed by Dave Rolfe and is an Atari version of the Intellivision Major League Baseball game. It's two-player only. You can be the home team or the visiting team. Now, it is possible to play this game by yourself, but boy, it's not easy to do. But anyway, so not a bad game, honestly. It's you got to make sure that whoever you're playing with, though, knows how to activate the players. Oh yeah, because that was a big cause for fights between me and my brother when we would play this. He'd say, "You didn't tell me how to activate the players." And I'd hit home runs and stuff, and then my parents would believe him and say, "No, I tell you, you hit the button and you move to the side or move to the side twice." And oh yeah, so just to save yourself a lot of fights with somebody, make sure that they know how to actually play the game before you guys sit down and play it. Overall, though, it's a great two-player game, and it's just too bad there wasn't AI for it, though. And so we go from one Super Challenge sports game to another, as our next game on the number 9 spot is Super Challenge Football. This was programmed by Ken Smith and is an Atari version of NFL football for the Intellivision. Not a bad game, honestly. It's really a lot of fun, and you get a little bit more control, I guess you could say, or the controls are a little bit easier in this than the baseball game, which is why we rated it higher. Really, overall, a pretty fun game, though. Like I said, spent hours playing it as a kid. The same problem, though, is that it is two-player only, because if it wasn't, it would be much higher on this list. Oh yeah, it's Kool-Aid, and that is our next game. Is Kool-Aid Man. This was programmed by Steve Tatsumi. Now, originally when this game came out, you had to save up points on the back of the UPC points on the back of your Kool-Aid packets and all that. And I think after you got like about 1,000,000, you sent it in and you got this game. Now you had a choice of getting this particular version, the Atari 2600, or the Intellivision version, which we can probably talk about on another top 10 or something. Yeah, good idea. And so, therefore, in this game, you take on the role of the pitcher, and you are trying to stop these bad little guys. I think, what are they called? Thirsties. Yeah, they're trying to drink your Kool-Aid, and you're trying to stop them. And the only time you can grab them is when they have straws, because if you don't, then you're going to get bumped all over the place. And occasionally you'll have these the packets of Kool-Aid come by, and then you'll get turned into Kool-Aid Man, and you'll be well, not really. What are they? Those aren't Kool-Aid packets, right? No, one of them, W is water, S is sugar, and the K's are Kool-Aid, and it turns you into Kool-Aid Man and makes you indestructible for a couple seconds. Yeah, now this game was later released in stores, so I kind of feel bad for the people that saved up, those points, and then later on they could have just bought it in the store. But regardless, the game itself is a whole lot of fun. Great marketing idea, and just a really good sign of a symbol of the 80s when the Kool-Aid Man was really cool. Don't see him much anymore, except for occasionally he pops up on Family Guy, though. Next up on the list, we have Frogs and Flies. This was programmed by Dave Rolfe, and it was the Atari version of Frog Bog, a game that I played with my dear friend Larry the Lion a while back. Hey, you guys gonna do any more of them videos? I kind of enjoyed those, especially when you lost and you get all mad. No, that was Larry that would get all mad. Well, whatever. Anyway, are you guys gonna do another one? Oh yeah. Probably pretty soon here. Anyway, in this game, you are two frogs in the swamp trying to catch as many flies as possible in the time that's allowed. Really a fun game. Really a great game to play with a friend, especially like a little brother or a cousin or somebody that can't accuse you of cheating, even though it's not possible to cheat. But anyway, really a fun two-player game. I have memories of playing this with friends and stuff. It's just really an enjoyable game overall. The graphics are simplistic, but yet you can really tell what everything is. Just brilliantly done. Great game. Okay, next up we have Air Raiders. This was programmed by Larry Zwick. In this game, you take on you are a fighter jet, and you both fly up in the air, and you try to take out other fighter jets. Really a cool game. Only problem with it is you run out of ammo, and you gotta land the plane and refuel. Get some more ammo and head back up. But there is a hack out there that has unlimited ammo, done by the great Thomas Jench. But overall, this is a great game and much better than Top Gun. Now, next up, we have Adventures of Tron. This was programmed by Hal Finney. Now, Tron was a Walt Disney movie that I loved, still love, and I did a thorough episode on the different games based on that awesome movie, which does still hold up, by the way, if you haven't watched it lately. Originally, this was supposed to be a game for the Intellivision as well, but it wasn't released. Years later, the ROM was found and all that. It's a really cool game. You take on the role of Tron. You're trying to collect these different items and avoid getting yourself killed. It's just really cool. I really enjoy it. Also, don't forget that this was one of the two games of Tron that they made for the Atari 2600. There were three different games, I believe. I think so. If I remember correctly, there were three games that they made for the Intellivision. But a great movie and a really, really fun and addictive game. That's all I can really say about it. Oh, I agree totally. And next up there we have Tron Deadly Disc. This was the second of the two Tron games that were made for the Atari 2600, and this one also was based on a Intellivision game, also called Tron Deadly Discs. In this one, you were taking on the role again of the titular character Tron, and you were trying to throw these discs and take out your enemies. The discs were on the back of all the characters in the movie, and they were used as weapons in the different games if you watched the film. Now, this game was programmed by Jeff Rohn and by Brett Stutz. Very nice job and nice conversion. Also, just as a side note, if you purchased both of these games in 1983, you got that really awesome joystick. Why don't you put that up there on the screen, Anthony? Oh, there it is. Also, back in that day, you could buy just one of the games and then send it in, and you could get joystick. I think, I don't remember, but joystick itself is really awesome, and like Anthony pointed out in a previous episode, it works really good on the Activision Decathlon game. And next up, we have our second port of an arcade game. An arcade game that really holds a special place in my heart, and that is Bump and Jump. This game was programmed by Dave Akers, also by Jeff Ratcliffe. The graphics were by Joe King, and the sound was by Patricia Lewis Dulong. And when you play this game, you see why so many people were involved in making this game. Wow. In this one, you are driving this special race car, and you're trying to destroy your opponents. And once you get up enough speed, you can actually jump really high in the air. And the object of the game is to take out as many of your opponents as possible, drive through 4 different seasons, and not crash. Which, in later seasons, especially when you're in the snow, that can be a real challenge. This game has a special place in my heart, as it was one of the first few arcade games that I actually got the top score on. I did that when I was playing it at Celebration Station, really showing my age there, and my mom was there to watch me do it. So, yep, really enjoyed this game, and honestly, I have not yet found a bad port of it, which I will talk about in an upcoming AVP episode. Now, when it came to picking the number 1 and 2 spot, we had a little bit of trouble picking between these two because we loved both of these games. But ultimately, we decided that Dark Cavern would take the number 2 spot. Now, this game was programmed by Al Finney, and it's an Atari version of the Intellivision game Night Stalker, which I do highly recommend playing. If you like this one, you're going to love Night Stalker. In this one, you're this guy who is just kind of thrown into this cavern, and you are trying to destroy blobs, spiders, and robots, and destroy as many of them as you can. Really a fun, not really imaginative game so much, but it's just really a lot of fun. Anthony and I both spent many hours playing this game with friends and family, and oh yeah, it's just more fun than you should be allowed to have, I tell you. And finally, at the number 1 spot, we have Lock and Chase. This was the same name as its Intellivision counterpart, and this was programmed by Bruce Peterson. Now, in this game, you take on the role of a thief, and you are trying to pick up all this gold and not get caught by the cops. And what do you have in your defense? Well, you can set up these barriers that can stop them from catching you, and you get extra points if you can actually trap them in 2 of the barriers. After you clear the area, you escape from the top and you go on to the next one. Yeah, it's not wholly original, but it's a nice play on the whole maze game that was big in the 80s thanks to Pac-Man. Now, I read somewhere an interesting fact. Now, what is that? I read that there is somewhat of a Lupin the Third reference somewhere in this. I don't know if that's true. I read that somewhere and I don't remember where, but yeah, maybe with a few graphical changes or something, it could be like a Lupin the Third game. It does kind of have a little bit of that feel behind it. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. But overall, in our opinion, this is the finest game that M Network made for the Atari 2600. It was a tough decision, but ultimately, Lock and Chase won out. Well, that concludes this episode of Anthony and Red's Top 10. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let us know by giving us a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to click that little bell icon down there so you'll be notified when we upload any new episodes. So, Red, my friend, what is going to be the subject of our next Top 10 video? Well, in this one, we talked about how M Network, that made Intellivision, made games for Atari 2600. So why don't we keep going with that vein and talk about Coleco, that made Atari 2600 games, even though they were the creators of the ColecoVision. I think that's a great idea. So that will be the subject of our next episode. Well, until that time, I'm Anthony Gamer, and I am Red Fox, and we will see you all in the next episode. Until that time, be happy, be strong, be safe, be happy, be healthy, and above all, take care of each other, be kind to each other, and stop hate of all kinds. Okay there? All right. See you soon. Bye, everybody. Goodbye.